If I'm being totally honest, I think that the literal only way the Liberals could ever get reelected in the next election is if it happened several months ago. And even then, that's a stretch. I've shown in my latest videos that the polls are showing that the Conservative Party of Canada is going to win the next election. And it's increasingly more in their favor every single day. In fact, it's so much in their favor that the Conservative Party of Canada is more likely to win a majority government than they are just to win the election. This is like crazy times here in Canada. Canadians are worried in every single aspect about their money, about policies, about the cost of living, about housing, about affordability, about groceries, about investments, about every single thing. And every day it's becoming more and more concerning. And the Liberals are just kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you to give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps grow the channel. We're on route to 400,000 subscribers, which would be 1% of Canada's population. This is absolutely insane. And in addition to that, if you'd like a matching hat, the Freedom hat that I so often wear every single day when my wife doesn't steal it, you can find the link for that is down in the description below. There's hats, there's shirts, there's coffee mugs, there's hoodies. Winter is coming, so the best way to prepare for winter is by being properly dressed. And why not be properly dressed with, you know, the right political merch that suits your needs and desires. All right, so today we're getting into how the Liberal Party of Canada is just imploding on so many aspects. You have Trudeau's constant controversies, Trudeau being heckled, Liberals being heckled. You've got recent dinner parties that they had that was so overly priced that backfired, and I have another video planned specifically for that. It doesn't end. And even when they do a joint press conference of multiple or a couple different Liberal ministers getting, questions and stuff and doing their speeches from the press, they still don't have all their ducks in a row. This is a really, really bad display of the type of management that the Liberal Party of Canada has. They've done a reshuffle, which you would think is so that they can get everything in order, but it hasn't worked out yet. Specifically, Chrystia Freeland. She is a monster. She is disliked by so many Canadians. She appears to be this nice little girl, right, who's like 4 feet tall, and oh my gosh, she's got a squeaky little voice. She must be nice, Mr. Speaker. But that's not true at all, right? You got some woke, crazy liberal leftists that enjoy her because she fits that narrative of being tiny little, cute little person with a squeaky little voice. But her policies just screw people. If you want to pay more taxes, if you want to have less money, if you want things to be overpriced, then I implore you to keep voting Liberal. But if you want to afford a house, if you want your children or grandchildren to afford a house, if you want more money in your bank accounts, in your pockets, if you want to pay less for groceries, if you want to have better roads, more housing, better immigration laws, all of that stuff, if you want Canada to get back on track, then stop voting Liberal. That's like the most simplistic way that I can put it. So we're going to take a look at some videos here. But before we do, I kind of want to just gaze over the prime rate in Canada over the past pretty much 100 years. So a lot of people, probably people that are viewing this, are aged like fine wine and lived through this era right here, right? The 70s and 80s, where interest rates were like 20%. And it's like, whoa, man, back in my day, all right, Mr. Sunshine, you don't understand. 7% is a deal, bro. Because back in my day, we had to pay like 18% for a mortgage. Okay, your mortgage, the price of a house was equal to this Starbucks refillable cup, all right? So it's not really comparable. You're comparing apples to gold bars. So let's just look at the recent jump in prime rate. So you have in the 2015, the interest rates were super affordable. Even back in 2012, 2010, right? Things were pretty decent. And even when there was a spike in 2007, 2008, the housing costs were not anywhere near what they are now. Now, the major problem is that the price of housing has skyrocketed to just ridiculous amounts, like $600,000 for a family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? Multiple levels, either with a second floor or either with a basement and a primary floor. $650,000 out in the boonies, out in Saskatoon, right? Who I got to be careful. I was going to say, who in the right mind would live in Saskatoon? No offense. But if you're living in like a major city or around civilization, right, moving far, 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 far away is not always a viable solution to everybody, right? People's circumstances, families, kids, jobs, work, blah, blah, blah. There's so many reasons why people need to live in certain areas. So $650,000 for just a simple home or a simple duplex, right, or townhouse is crazy. And when you're paying that amount with the prime rate as of today being 7.20%, it's just not affordable for anybody. So who can fix this? Well, certainly not the Liberal government, because when you hear them talk about money and budget spending, they don't even agree with each other, which is the video that we're going to watch right now. Chrystia Freeland is butting heads with what is it, Anita, right? And they just don't have their ducks in a row. So this clip is from CPAC right here. You're going to see Freeland is going to be answering some questions from the press, and the other Liberal MP behind her is going to try and correct her, and Chrystia Freeland cuts her off. They just don't have their ducks in a row. And we're going to look at political analysts from CTV after this video even mention this and say, hey man, the Liberals are really messing up and they don't have their story aligned. So the fact that the mainstream media is also turning on the Liberals, it just goes to show something is severely wrong. Without further ado, let's get the video started here.
On the spending review, you're talking about saving less than 0.1% of money that the government spends over 5 years. The Business Council of Canada calls that a rounding error. How do you convince Canadians that you're serious about this when it's such small numbers over 5 years that you're talking about? When the budget's 550 billion, you're saving 15 billion over 5 years. It doesn't seem like a very substantive exercise in cutting the federal government's costs.
So let me say a couple of things there. First of all, when it comes to the 15 billion in repurposed spending, this is not new news. This was a commitment we made in the budget in the spring, and that commitment underpins the entire fiscal forecast that the budget was based on. So this is something we said months ago that we would do. People have been working really, really hard on putting it in place, and my wonderful colleague, the President of the Treasury Board, has taken the next step to act on this, to deliver on what we promised. In terms of the broader question of government and fiscal responsibility, let me just say this. We are Liberals. We believe government has an important role to play in supporting Canadians, in building a social welfare net that supports Canadians, and in putting in place programs that help our economy to grow. Just think about early learning and childcare. That happened because the federal government decided to make an investment in early learning and childcare. And we are seeing the results. We are seeing the results in the highest labor force participation rate for working age Canadian women in our history. And that is coming at a time when we have labor shortages, and it is helping families with affordability. So,
okay, here we go. You just saw one mannerism where she opened her mouth right here and wanted to correct Chrystia Freeland. Just pay very close attention to both of their faces, because this just goes to show that they don't have their shit together, and it's very embarrassing for the entire party.
Our approach is we need government, and government must do important things for Canadians, for the economy, for Canadian people, including, by the way, in housing. We also understand, I'm just going to finish, Anita. We also
She's trying to correct her. Chrystia Freeland, you don't have your facts straight. Let's go back and watch this here. This is hilarious.
Important things for Canadians, for the economy, for Canadian people, including, by the way, in housing. We also understand, I'm just going to finish, Anita. We also understand that government is able to deliver for Canadians when government operates on a responsible fiscal footing. And that, by the way, is a profoundly Liberal conviction. It was Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin that did the very hard work of fighting to get the AAA rating that Canada currently enjoys. And what we are committed to is doing the things Canadians need us to do and maintaining that responsible fiscal foundation. And we are doing that. Canada, it has a AAA rating, notwithstanding the great investments we've made in Canadians. We have the lowest deficit in the G7, and we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. We understand that if we want to continue to do big things for Canadians and build those things on that firm fiscal foundation, we have to be thoughtful about where the money is spent. And so that's why, the repurposing of spending of $15 billion, absolutely the right thing to do. And absolutely, that $15 billion is already in the fiscal forecast. The fiscal forecast and the budget that we tabled in the spring includes that $15 billion of savings so that we could fund the programs that were outlined in the budget. So it's not a new savings, it's something built into the fiscal track, and it is an approach which is very fiscally responsible and very in tune with generations of Liberal and progressive leaders in Canada.
She's about to get corrected.
Just building on that, it's $15 billion over 5 years and then about $4 billion thereafter. And the exercise is extremely important. Spending reviews have been part of previous governments. But what we are asking departments across the government to do is to take a look at your expenditures and determine where there is the possibility to refocus that spending so that we can continue to deliver for Canadians in the large projects like childcare and dental care and health care.
If those projects actually worked, I would be on board. I mean, I have a child. She's just past 10 months old, and paying $10 a day childcare seems like something that's quite attractive to a new parent and new families. But the issue is that it's selective. So childcare facilities have to sign up, have to meet a certain criteria, and have to had already signed up by a certain date. And then there's a tremendously long wait list. So if you're thinking about having a kid, or you just had a kid and you're like, oh, great, $10 a day childcare, sign up about 4 years before you actually have a child, because the wait list is just so tremendously large. So it's not inclusive for everybody. And I understand they're trying to expand the budget by putting Canadians further into debt to make this work, but the numbers just don't seem to add up. It just doesn't seem fiscally responsible. By the way, if you want a very good drinking game, whether you're drinking scotch, rum, beer, right, hard liquor, wine, whatever it is, watch the House of Commons when it comes back, when they go back to sitting, September 18th, right? And every time you hear Liberals say AAA credit rating or fiscally responsible, just take a sip, not even a full shot, just take a sip. You will be so hammered by the time that the House of Commons is done for the day that you won't even be able to, function. It's crazy. You're going to start sounding like a Liberal. You're going to be all over the place. This is horrible, horrible, horrible that they aren't even on the same page, these Liberals. And so now we're going to take a look at CTV's kind of political breakdown of what's happening, because it's frankly so embarrassing for the Liberal Party, which is why people from Liberal supporters and NDP supporters are switching over to the Conservative Party of Canada. A lot of people aren't happy with how the Conservative Party of Canada has been branding themselves. In Canada, we don't really have a Republican Party in the sense that America does. Our Conservative Party of Canada is still quite progressive and still quite liberal, because traditionally Canada historically has been a very progressive and liberal government. I was raised in a liberal household. I'm sure a lot of viewers, right, who are like diehard conservatives now, gun owners, fishermen, hunters, people that believe there's two genders, a lot of those people, a lot of us, right, were raised with liberal values, liberal tendencies way back in the day, because that's how Canada has been, was pretty much always been liberal. And so the Conservative Party of Canada today in 2023 is still kind of, it's like old school liberal, but it's viewed as right-wing extremist by the new Liberal Party, because wokeism has kind of taken over the whole liberal ideology, or in America, the Democrat Party. So a lot of people are kind of jumping ship from the Liberal Party and going to Conservative. So for those who are like a little bit more right wing than what we have here in Canada, who follow Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis in America, you're probably dissatisfied with the Conservative Party of Canada because they're not as right wing or as conservative or as opposition like as what they have in America. And that's just the difference of our countries. It is what it is. And if you want to change it, by all means. I mean, there is a decent alternative to a more opposition, which would be the PPC, but they're not able to really get a lot of traction for reasons that we don't really know. And I'm not going to get into right now. So our Conservative Party of Canada is kind of viewed more as old school liberal, and a lot of people are realizing that, and they're seeing past the murky waters and the slanderous attacks by the mainstream media to paint Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party as right-wing extremists, which they're not. They're not even close to right-wing extremists. They're very progressive and very liberal. So let's take a look at CTV's political breakdown of this here. The video of this is called Tensions in Trudeau's Cabinet. Here's what Tom Mulcair thinks.
What was the takeaway for you from the Prime Minister's closing news conference this morning in Charlottetown?
It's a delicate balancing act for Mr. Trudeau because he's been there for 8 years. So, Marcia, every time he talks about an issue like housing, which is top of mind, as that poll just showed, he tries to do two things. Tries to reassure people that they understand the issue and that they've been on it. But every time Mr. Trudeau says something, and he repeated it several times, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing, because he's trying to say that they've been doing something on housing. The average Canadian who is concerned says, but we want you to do something different because what you've been doing hasn't worked. And that's where it's becoming tricky for him. My main takeaway, though, is that Trudeau's starting to prepare his lines for the next campaign. We attended the beta version of Justin Trudeau's stump speech for the next campaign. Well, the question is all about leadership. When times are tough and inflation is, really eating away at people's paychecks, do you try to make them even more angry, or do you try to rise up above it? I don't think that that's a winning formula right now. I've always been very skeptical of Poilievre's approach. Everything's broken and everything's Trudeau's fault. I don't think that that completely works. But what's happening now, Marcia, is that Poilievre is starting to really reach into some of the base vote of the Liberals and of Trudeau.
Yes.
He's talking to 18 to 25-year-olds and saying, not only are you finishing university with massive debt, but you're never going to be able to buy a house, something that Canadians have taken for granted for generations. In clear terms, you're going to be poorer than your parents or your grandparents. That's starting to hit home. And that's why his numbers are starting to climb up. Trudeau knows that. He's a really experienced politician, but he's running out of buttons to hit. And he's lots of red flashing lights on his dashboard. He doesn't know what to do. And we're starting to see two phenomena take place. One is there are people in his caucus who are talking on background. They're not named, but to mainstream media, serious journalists talking to them individually. They're unhappy. And that's new. Trudeau very, very rarely had to deal with any type of reaction from his caucus. The other one we saw live yesterday over Chrystia Freeland's right shoulder. We had Anita Anand, who kept trying to get in to the answers that she was giving. And unexpectedly, and frankly out of character, Chrystia Freeland more or less snapped and said, yeah, I'm going to finish here first, Anita, in front of the cameras. So if in cabinet, two people who don't hide their leadership aspirations are already starting to bicker like that in front of all Canadians, I don't think it augurs very well for the next few months for Mr. Trudeau, frankly.
Interesting.
It's really bad optics, and this is probably the worst time in history to be a Liberal supporter. The Liberals are bickering amongst themselves in front of the cameras. That is horrible. And if you're a Liberal supporter, or if you know a Liberal supporter, you may want to send them this particular video. And I should probably start by saying this at the beginning of my videos, because it's not a good look and people are waking up. And this isn't about turning Canada into this like crazy right wing, we're going to fight literally everything. It's just about common sense for, I hate to repeat what Pierre says, but it is a good tagline, common sense for the common people. The average person wants to be able to afford groceries, wants to be able to go on vacation, wants to be able to own a car, wants to be able to travel freely amongst, work days or weekends, wants to be able to afford a home, wants to be able to have a family at a relatively young age, right? In the 20s or 30s or whatever that is. And you're finding more and more people are having to resort to, sharing houses with, friends or family living in their parents' basement. All of those talking points that Pierre Poilievre does such a great job of referring to, because they're all true. I personally have friends that are in their 30s that still live with their parents, and that's okay. Some people, some cultures are like that, but I think that the majority of Canadians would like to be able to afford a home, whether that's out in Saskatoon, right? Far away from the rest of civilization, but still people want to be able to afford houses. And if not for themselves, they want their children or grandchildren to be able to afford houses. And we're just not on track for that. And that's really hitting home for a lot of people. So that's where we're going to end today's video, everybody. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this topic, please feel free to let them run free down in the comments. That's where we're going to end it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by checking out the merch shop linked right up there. Or if you want to do something for free, which is also absolutely acceptable and highly encouraged, you can subscribe right there. If you want to continue watching videos like this, you can do so by clicking or tapping right there to watch the next upcoming video. And if you want to watch a little bit of different content, but also Canadian stuff, you can do so by clicking right up there. That's my second channel, House of Canada, also known as the House of Commons Highlights. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.